What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Fringe. I'm about to do a video that is going to garner an unpopular opinion, and I hope people understand and watch the entire video to see what I'm saying and why I am saying it. In fact, I'm going to have to call out all government at some point here, not just the Liberals, but all government. I want to put forward that this is not to say that I don't support certain arms of the government or that I don't vote for certain sides of the government. But what I am saying here is I'm demanding better representation as a Canadian from my government. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the recent outpouring of, we'll say, punishment for Dalian GC strategies over a Arrive scam. I've covered another video where we talked about how they've been barred from contracts for 7 years from the House of Commons. People seem to think that, that's suitable. Now, I made a very sarcastic title on my last video saying justice was finally served. No, it wasn't. In fact, we showed in that video how it wasn't. I want to show you now why we have a bigger problem on our hands. Here's our DEI hire Governor General, Salty Albertan, tweeting out, "If this doesn't enrage you, Canada, you deserve everything coming your way." I couldn't agree more. Here it is. The Governor General of Canada just dropped a bombshell. 100% of government contracts break procurement rules, and your tax dollars are being handed out like candy. Let's take a listen to this, and I'm going to tell you where I got a problem with this.
Given the investigations you've done so far on McKinsey and GC strategies, do you have a sense at this point of how widespread these issues are in the public service?
Well, I can only speak to those two elements, and in both cases, the vendors represented a really small percentage of what was spent on professional services contracts by the federal government. But in the McKinsey work, we had looked at 10 Crown corporations and 10 departments. In this audit, there's 31 federal organizations, including 1 Crown and departments. And we found issues in almost every contract that we looked at, which tells me that there's no reason to believe it's limited to these two. And it's time for the public service to go back to the basics in understanding procurement rules and why they should be followed.
So now that we've been caught, oh, there's so many people breaking the rules, we should go back to basics, right? You should have been back at basics from the start. Now, if you followed this channel for a long time, you'll know that multiple years ago, I had Stephanie Kusi on the channel. I had Garnet Jenis on the channel talking about the committees that were being put forward against GC strategies in Dalian. We spoke to them about what's going to happen. How useful are these committees? Because keep in mind, running these committees also costs Canadian taxpayers money. I know people are sick and tired of me talking about Alberta Independence or Saskatchewan's independence, or Manitoba floating the idea of independence. People think that this is an anti-Canada channel now. The reason I'm talking about those things is because Alberta in particular has a budget plan outlining the billions of dollars that would be saved from the wasteful hands of the federal government just by signing our names on a ballot. It's not about disrespecting the flag or those who fought for our country. It's about why are we handing our money out to criminals, to a new racket of organized crime? Because that's what Justin Trudeau exposed to us in the last 10 years, is just how easy it is to steal taxpayers' money and essentially do whatever you want with it. If you watched the channel yesterday, we talked about modular housing and how the government plans to tax your equity. That's scary. The government wants to put their hands in your pocket every opportunity they get. And we haven't seen any arrests made. We haven't seen any charges. We haven't seen anybody implicated in anything. Just slap on the wrist. Oh, your company. Keep in mind, I don't know about the loopholes here, but they have said that GC Strategies and Dalian cannot take other contracts over the next 7 years. What stops them from forming another company and getting another contract? The problem here is accountability. All of these government parties talk about accountability. My question has always been, to what level do we hold people accountable? I want to highlight Pierre because he's running in his by-election. Again, I hope he wins his leadership race in Crowfoot. I hope that he gets his seat back in the House of Commons, and I hope that he goes on to run in the next federal election. I'm going to make that very clear. But part of what Pierre said after the last election is that he's learned some lessons. So the lessons I'm asking as a tax-paying Canadian, not to scrutinize the Conservatives, is why are we not seeing jail time? Why are we not seeing charges? Why are we not seeing actual accountability? Why is there no politician talking about removing parliamentary privilege from those who are corruptly handing out contracts in our tax dollars? I want a Conservative-led government should provinces decide they're going to give Canada another chance. However, they've got to work within the best interest of the people. When you look at NGOs, when you look at funding that goes out, wasteful spending to multiple organizations, almost, I'd say 70% roughly of what we pay as taxpayers goes to wasted spending. When you look at money that's handed out to other countries, when you look at NGOs, again, that just sit around doing nothing for some of the money that they get, when you look at contracts being handed out like this in corrupt governments, look at this guy smiling off to the side. He's not taking this seriously. Pierre is. Let's take a listen to what Pierre had to say, and then I'm going to finish my point as to why I'm demanding better.
What do you make of the fact that public servants are not being held accountable for failing to check that this work, like, signing these contracts and never checking that the work's going to be done? Should there be punitive measures here?
Well, yes. I mean, anybody who did that should be fired, but the politicians should be held accountable as well. I mean, I just finished listing all of the Liberal ministers that were in charge of these various departments that went ahead and spent this money even though it was unnecessary. I mean, look at Patty Haidu. We said that the ArriveCan app was unnecessary, and they went ahead and used it anyway. We didn't need it. It didn't do any good, and it cost a fortune. Why was she not held accountable instead of promoted by Mark Carney? Why was Dominic LeBlanc, who was the public safety minister, not held accountable? Why was Sean Fraser promoted after he made these mistakes? This Liberal government is in a habit of promoting politicians who waste people's money and screw up people's lives.
So all Pierre is doing here is repeating the same words I'm saying, and it's great that he's pointing those things out. But the real question, and this was, I think, a lot of Canadians' problems when it came to the federal election. And again, scrutiny here, folks. I'm sorry not to pad this. But this was, from what I see online, a lot of people had this issue. Pierre wants to point out the problems, but we don't see any solutions. We don't hear any platforms of how are we going to erase this? How are we going to right the wrongs that the Liberals have done? The problem here isn't Conservatives or Liberals. The problem here is accountability, transparency. The problem here is that what was to stop the Conservative government from doing the same things when they got into office? The Conservative government would have NGOs. The Conservative government would be giving out contracts, and the Conservative government would be doing what they feel is best within their agenda to represent Canadians. Now, very clearly, I am not saying that that is a bad thing or that I don't want the Conservatives in government. I'm saying that it's exchanging hands and it's just more people in favor in the country of the things the Conservatives are doing. Am I saying that Pierre wouldn't have been transparent with Canadians? Absolutely not. Am I saying that there would have been corruption? I don't want to say those things. But the question was asked when Stephanie Kusi and Garnet Jennis were on the channel, why are we running these committees that cost taxpayers money to essentially waste the time of Canadians hoping that somebody is held accountable only to see them walk or get a slap on the wrist? You can go back and see it in our archives. And both Garnet Jennis and Stephanie Kusi said, well, we just got to get to the bottom of it. Why? If nothing is going to happen, let me ask you guys a question. If the committees revolving around Arrive Scam and Dalian and GC Strategies cost Canadian taxpayers, let's just throw a figure out in the air. I'm not saying this is what it costs. Let's say $5 million. And what we see at the end of that is 7 years, no contracts, no arrests, slap on the wrist. Are you happy as a Canadian taxpayer that those committees were formed, that all that time was wasted to get 7 years of no contracts? If you look at the comments down here, clearly Canadians aren't interested in the Conservatives fixing things, not that they seem all that interested anyways. People saying it's true, give them a mirror right now. See, this is where I'm talking about. These aren't my opinions that I'm giving in these videos. These are the consensus online. What I'm talking about is improvement so that these guys can win the next election. And we have to get real if we want the Conservatives to win. There's nothing wrong with questioning a government or those who want to represent you to do better. In fact, I did that on Twitter as I tagged Stephanie Kusi. As a Canadian taxpayer, I'm more interested in why no one is talking about jail time. 7 years, no contract, slap on the wrist. This is why Alberta wants out. What are Conservatives going to do to bring Alberta back? Stephanie Kusi tweeting out yesterday on behalf of Canadian taxpayers, I stood alongside Pierre Poilievre to condemn the Liberals who failed to follow the most basic of procurement policies surrounding nearly $100 million in government contracts with GC Strategies. And she asks the question, when are Canadians going to get their money back? I'm interested in this guy going to jail. I want Trudeau in handcuffs. I want Liberal ministers handcuffed and walked out of the building during question period and put on full display so that my tax dollars are going exactly where I want them. What we're seeing here is just more around and around we go. That's the problem I have. This isn't about Pierre. It's not about the Conservatives. It's about the constant around and around we go, doing the same things and expecting different results. That, by definition, folks, is insanity. We need to start asking our Conservative MPs the same thing I said before the election. What are you doing to keep your job in the next federal election? What are you doing to get my vote? Because right now you're doing more of the same old, and over the last 10 years, folks, has anything changed? Are we in a better position? Are we going to be in a better position under Mark Carney? Absolutely not. If we're not going to see jail time, if we're not going to see arrests, if we're not going to see accountability, then what we have to do is start demanding better representation or none at all. Because my fear here isn't whether or not Pierre becomes leader of the Conservative Party again, whether or not he makes it to a federal election, because I do believe Pierre has the tools necessary to win that election if he's prepared to listen to Canadians. The problem I see is that for as long as Canadians continue to watch this carousel go around and around and nothing comes of it, we're just told, hey, there goes 1 million more, here goes a couple million more, here goes 100 million more. Canadians are going to get fed up. They're already fed up. This country is in disarray. You have multiple provinces talking about secession from Confederation. No federal government employee wants to deal with that. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to address it. They want to keep running the same old taglines that lost them the election in the first place. We need better. I know it's an unpopular opinion. I'm sure the comments are going to be full of people saying, you're 100% wrong. Stop bad-mouthing Pierre. I'm going to make it crystal clear. I am not bad-mouthing Pierre on any level. And I hope that anyone who catches people in the comments saying things like that jumps in to chime in and give their 2 cents. I want better. I want those people. I just want better. I think you deserve better. Should we stay in Confederation? Let me know what you think down below in the comments. If it's your first time here, drop a thumbs up. Drop a comment in. I hope this video has earned your subscription. Make sure to hit the bell for all notifications so you never miss a beat when a video drops on this channel. I don't like making these types of videos, folks, but we have to get real. The government is our problem. The government is the reason we can't afford to live. Not just the Liberals. Things have to change if we're going to see change. Join me live here on the channel each and every Friday night for Friday Night Fringe, my weekly live streaming show, where I'm joined by the beautiful Mrs. Fringe as we go back and forth amongst everything that happened this week in Canadian politics, everything we know that's coming up in the weeks ahead, as well as back and forth Q&A within the greatest YouTube community on the platform, full stop. I always look forward to talking to you guys each and every week. I look most importantly forward to talking with you this Friday night, starting at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, here on the channel. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.